Ineos want to wait to see their new signings in action before making a decision on Erik Ten Hag. Debunking the Thomas Tuchel nonsense that came out yesterday. Manchester United have identified their next star. Kone is considered a first-team signing, and Casemiro to Turkey. All this plus the latest Manchester United news and transfer news that will keep you right up to date with everything. Welcome to Man United Review. My name's Jamie. Before we get into it, please smash a like on the video. And let's jump straight on into it. So let's kick off with the hot topic at the moment, Erik Ten Hag. We're going to have a long international break, I think, talking about Ten Hag, and it's just a shame, but it is what it is, and rightly so as well, considering the performance against Liverpool and the start of the season that we've had. So let's go through all the latest news regarding him. So firstly, the Mail has said that the view is that Ineos haven't kept Erik Ten Hag and built a new system around him just to wield the axe at the first sign of trouble. Equally, however, there's an acceptance that poor results will not be allowed to continue indefinitely. And that's pretty kind of fair enough. That I think that's what, I know I've said that a few times on here as well. And I think generally in the comments, a lot of would feel the same way, where they're not going to make a rash decision yet because they have built a team around him. So Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox and all that, that's what they're talking about. They want to give that some time to see how that kind of goes. And obviously the new coaches, Van Nistelrooy, Rene Hack, and all these kind of people have just come in as well. So they want to see how that kind of develops before making a rash decision on Erik Ten Hag. However, they aren't stupid to think that if the results don't pick up, then there will be a decision that needs to be made, which is fair enough. I think that's the right approach personally, but you can let me know what you think in the comments. And Fabrizio Romano also said something similar as well. Said the position internally at the club is that before judging anything in terms of results and performances, it's really important to see all the new signings ready to play. So again, that's probably giving maybe Erik Ten Hag a bit of the benefit of the doubt that obviously Ugarte hasn't played yet. It was De Ligt's first start against Liverpool. He's not quite fully match fit yet. Mazraoui, I think, has been thrown in the deep end just purely because we don't have a left back, so he's having to play. We've got no options there. Xerxes not up to speed yet. He's just come in. Obviously, Lenny Yoro's injured. Do you know what I mean? So I think they're kind of going off of what Romano's saying, is they're just prepared to wait to see actually when we get all the players in and they're fully fit and they're sharp and everything, how do we then play? And that's the kind of, again, I think that's a sensible decision by Ineos, not doing any knee-jerk reactions. And I wanted to bring in this. These are some quotes from Andy Cole regarding the manager situation, and then I'll go through these, and then you can let me know what you think, whether you agree or disagree in the comments. So Andy Cole and Erik Ten Hag said, I don't really entertain that nonsense. I really don't. Everybody's going to have an opinion and say what they have to say and want to say. Ultimately, Erik Ten Hag's in charge, and he deserves to be in charge because winning 2 cups in 2 seasons isn't doom and gloom. I understand that they've lost in a big game at home against Liverpool, and it wasn't a game that we lost many times when I was playing for Manchester United, but we're only 3 games in. It's not as if Manchester United have been terrible in all those 3 games. They beat Fulham, were unlucky against Brighton. For me personally, it can't be doom and gloom, and we just need to let Erik get on with his job. So let me know what you think about Andy Cole's comments. Do you agree or do you disagree? I kind of agree. I think there's bound to be a knee-jerk reaction when you lose in the manner that we did to Liverpool, and especially given the fact that there was so much noise at the end of last season regarding Erik Ten Hag's situation and the league position last season. And I get anyone that is still Erik Ten Hag out. I've always kind of said on here that I think if you're Erik Ten Hag out, you're right. And if you're Erik Ten Hag in, you're right, because it is a really difficult decision, because on one side you do have the trophies and the progression of the youth and stuff, which in my opinion is the positives for Ten Hag. But then obviously you've got the league form and the position and the style of play and the tactics and everything, which is on the opposite side for the Ten Hag out. So I do think you're right either way. It's a really difficult decision. But ultimately, we need to give him time. Do you know what I mean? I think we need to give him a little bit more time to let all the players settle in, let the coaches settle in, and I think that's the right approach personally. But you can let me know if you disagree or if you agree in the comments. Now I'm going to debunk all the Thomas Tuchel nonsense, because obviously if Ten Hag does go, they're going to need to look at a replacement. And while I do think that Thomas Tuchel would be one of the candidates for the job because he was clearly interviewed in the summer. So we know he's already been approached by Ineos. The news that came out yesterday was a little bit unfair is what I'm going to say firstly, but you'll understand more when I go through it. So originally I kind of saw the story in the Manchester Evening News that said a report from the Mirror claims that United will reapproach Thomas Tuchel if they ultimately decide to sack Erik Ten Hag. The club are thought to have spoken to the former Chelsea and Bayern Munich manager over the summer during their end-of-season review before eventually sticking with Ten Hag, who is facing scrutiny after a poor start to the campaign. So I went on the Mirror, read the kind of article, and literally within the first sentence, it says Manchester United are likely to pursue Thomas Tuchel if they do choose to make a managerial change. So that straight away for me is an opinion piece. If someone says they're likely to pursue Thomas Tuchel, that's me saying, "Oh, Man United are likely to beat Southampton." I don't know that for definite. I just think that's just my opinion that we might be likely to beat Southampton, but it's not based on any facts or any evidence. So then I went a step further and researched who it was that actually wrote the article on their Twitter page. It's got a picture of Pep Guardiola, and literally in their bio it says sports journalist for the Daily Mirror, Pep enthusiast. So straight away, I'm calling BS on that story. One, it's an opinion piece written by a Man City fan, and I don't think it's got any credibility whatsoever. I know a couple of the other mainstream media kind of picked up and did a similar story, but again, a lot of them were opinion pieces. Thomas Tuchel is not being lined up as a replacement for Erik Ten Hag currently. Do I think that he would be a manager that could replace Ten Hag if results didn't improve and Ten Hag did ultimately lose his job? Then definitely, I do think Thomas Tuchel would be considered for the role, considering the fact that he was interviewed for the job in the summer anyway before they made the decision on Erik Ten Hag. But that kind of noise from the Mirror yesterday, in my opinion, was just a pure opinion piece. It wasn't based on any facts or any. It was just Thomas Tuchel. Is United are likely to pursue Thomas Tuchel? You know, we might likely be consider pursuing Gareth Southgate as well, because we know there's been a lot of interest with Ineos from him as well. So thought I wanted to bring that to you just to debunk the kind of nonsense. There's no talk of Thomas Tuchel coming in immediately or anything. So, but make of that as you will. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, next story I got for you. So, David Ornstein said Manchester United Deputy Director Andy O'Boyle will leave the club, join Man United in 2022 to help improve men's, women's and academy. Great influence after Murta exit and heavily involved in the transfer window, highly regarded across the industry as well. So that's another kind of senior executive or a person in a senior position at Manchester United that's leaving the door, which just continues the road that Ineos are going down, getting their own people in and completely changing things above a manager in the kind of boardroom and stuff as well. Even though he's got a good reputation, he's still part of that kind of previous regime. And I do think Ineos want a new start and they want to get their own people in. And that's another one that's kind of on its way out and looking to be replaced. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, this was a really interesting story that I seen yesterday. So that this came from the Mail, saying that the name on everybody's lips right now at Carrington is Gabriel Biancheri. Coaches are excited about his potential, and I agree as well. He's had a good time since he came to United. He's only 17-year-old striker, plays for the under-18s. I think we signed him from Cardiff a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure he's Welsh. Believed to be a really exciting prospect and definitely one to keep an eye on. He scored 14 goals in 26 appearances last season. And I kind of think that the only thing United have got right in recent years is the academy. The academy and the under-18s and all of that are absolutely on fire. And look at some of the players that we're bringing through, not just necessarily first-team players, but also with PSR rules. If you watched yesterday's video around Dan Ashworth saying about PSR rules and stuff, bringing through these academy players and developing them, even if they're not quite ready for Manchester United first-team football, for them to then move on and we can get some cash for them from other clubs, is massively important with the Premier League. With the Premier League rules for financial fair play and stuff. So definitely one to keep an eye on. yeah, it's important going forward, though, that we do continue to develop these players as well. But he is absolutely bossing it in the under-18s at the moment. And the rumours were that Jason Wilcox has been monitoring him and is kind of keeping a close eye on his development as well. So one to keep an eye on. Gabriel Biancheri, very good, talented young player. Let's hope he could be the next one to come through into the first team in the next couple of years. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, let's go through some Casemiro stuff. So this was really interesting. So firstly, this came from Turkish journalist who I don't know the credibility of, being honest, but it was reposted by some credible people saying that Galatasaray are in talks with Manchester United to loan Casemiro for 1 year. Now, the interesting thing about that is the Turkish transfer window doesn't close till mid-September, so their transfer window is still open, little bit like the Saudi Pro League as well. I think theirs is still open at the moment. So there's some rumblings going on regarding potentially some Turkish clubs coming in for Casemiro. And if you think back to yesterday's video, there was a lot of noise around potentially like some kind of fallout with Erik Ten Hag and Casemiro, or the fact that Casemiro was basically complaining, saying the tactics don't fit his style of play, which could, eventually lead to some kind of potential issue there going on. So that would be really interesting and one to keep an eye on. Graham Bailey, who's I'm not going to say he's the most credible hit and miss journalist, saying that TBR Football understands that a possible exit for Casemiro to Turkey in the coming weeks can't be ruled out. The signing of Ugarte from Paris Saint-Germain, meaning that Casemiro's game time will be limited going forward. The midfielder is aware of the situation and therefore would consider a move to Turkey if the right options were available. So that's interesting. Like, firstly, I don't, I want to see way more credibility than a unknown Turkish source by me and Graham Bailey. To be honest with you, they're not the most credible sources coming out. I do think it's a bit more of a kind of, don't want to say an opinion piece, but one where they're kind of saying, oh, well, potentially Casemiro's not happy at United. The Turkish window's still open, and kind of doing a little bit of mischief making personally. But does beg the question. Obviously, we know we've been linked with Rabiot in the media, although Fabrizio Romano has said that Manchester United are not interested in Rabiot. But would you, hypothetically, either loan Casemiro or sell Casemiro to Galatasaray and get Adrien Rabiot in as a free transfer? Would you do that at this moment in time? Because that's not beyond the realms of impossible to do. And obviously there's a few noises around that. I personally, what do you think about it? Casemiro's on 300 grand a week, right? Rabiot wants, it's believed, around 150 grand a week. He's a little bit younger than Casemiro, but still not at the age profile Ineos want. But I think he's 28. Casemiro's 32. So from a business sense, it would actually, it wouldn't be the worst idea, I don't think, especially considering if Casemiro is not happy with the tactics and stuff. But I don't think it's likely. It's one to keep an eye out, though, and it creates an interesting kind of talking point. But let me know in the comments, would you do that? Would you let Casemiro go to Galatasaray and bring in Adrien Rabiot as a free transfer at the moment? Let me know in the comments below. And then the other player to keep an eye on is Eriksen. So Christian Eriksen's agent is already expecting more calls in January for the player. There were a few stories around potentially Turkish team coming in for Eriksen as well. But not from the most credible places, being honest. So, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on. And obviously, I do think they wanted to get rid of Eriksen in the summer. There just wasn't the interest that they wanted. And he is a player that represents pure profit from financial fair play, because we signed him as a free transfer as well. So I do think United weren't bowing down to the kind of ridiculous fees and stuff. They did want to get a couple of million at least for Christian Eriksen for that reason. But obviously, he's still here. So it might be one to look at for January. It's clearly going to be one to look at for January. Actually thinking about it, he's only got 12 months left on his contract, so he can talk to other clubs in January. So maybe United will be like, yeah, okay, we'll let him go on the cheap in January because it makes more sense to get at least something for him than nothing next summer. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. And then the next story I've got for you is regarding Chido Obi-Martin. So Manchester United is still waiting Premier League and Football Association approval for Chido Obi-Martin, Samuel Lascelles, and James Overy. James Overy was the right back that we signed from Australia in the summer. Really frustrating. It is what it is, though. I mean, thankfully, they're not first-team players, but obviously the process for that is different anyway. But they're still, in the process of waiting for the FA approval to register those 3 players and bring them obviously into the reserves as well. And then the other player that's also going to be coming into the reserves initially, Sekou Kone. So there's a feeling that Sekou Kone, who was pursued by a number of clubs this summer, will be fast-tracked up the ranks once he's bedded into life in England. But for now, he will bounce between academy sides. So he's kind of seen, and there was a news story I brought to you a few days ago as well, saying that Kone was considered to be a first-team player because of his potential and his quality. So again, another story coming out suggesting the same thing as well, that he's been brought in as potentially to go into the first team squad eventually. I think they're going to bounce in between the academies and stuff just while he settles to life in England. Which goes into the kind of next story from the Mail, saying that in the past week, a dinner was arranged with some academy players to help Kone form a friendship group while it has also been arranged for him to live with house parents to ensure that he doesn't find himself isolated in a new country. So they're kind of doing, their due diligence and kind of looking after the lad as well, which I absolutely rate. I love the fact that they're bringing in these young players, unknown gems from overseas, which is what I've wanted United to be doing for years, but then also helping them settle in as well, because that sort of thing goes a long way to help the development of the player, because it takes all that pressure off and all that noise off. Do you know what I mean? Outside of football, if you can kind of help a player do that and let them just concentrate on their development on the pitch, then that's a massive positive in my opinion. But one to keep an eye on, because there's been a few reports now saying that they reckon Kone's going to be in and amongst the first team at some point this year. So really interesting that. But let me know what you think in the comments. And then the final story I've got for you is I thought I'd bring in this regarding Kobe Mainoo. So this came from SofaScore, where they're saying that players with more than 10 interceptions in the opening 3 games of the Premier League campaign in the last 5 seasons, and N'Golo Kante 11 interceptions in the 2021 season, and then our star boy Kobe Mainoo 11 interceptions so far this season, kind of, and that's without a preseason. That's without him kind of, I don't think he still looks, I think he's tiring a lot in games because he's having to do so much work though in that midfield, and the fact that he hasn't got an athletic partner in Casemiro, he's having to do a lot of running and a lot of dog work. But the fact that he's put in as many interceptions as N'Golo Kante did says it all about Kobe Mainoo and his ability on the pitch as well. Again, I massively rate Kobe Mainoo, but I thought I'd bring that in just to kind of end on a bit of a positive, that it's not all been bad. Kobe Mainoo is still, even though I think he can do better, which is worrying, is up there with N'Golo Kante, who was the best at doing that, in my opinion. He was one of the best, I think, in the Premier League, where at winning the ball back. Unbelievable player, N'Golo Kante, for that. But thought I'd bring that in at the end. But let me know what you think about that in the comments, and the rest of the topics discussed in today's video, because that is you all up to date with the latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.